This is Word on the Reef, where marine science meets adventure. Join Tanya Murphy and Brett Goodban as we plunge into the wonders of the Great Barrier Reef and explore the mysteries beneath the waves. Good morning and welcome to Word on the Reef. I'm your host, diver and marine conservationist Tanya Murphy. And joining me, as always, is Cairns Aquarium's marine educator and fish whisperer, Brett Goodban.
Good morning. Gee, it was fresh, wasn't it? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was our probably coldest night of winter so far. Did get down to 13 degrees last night. My wetsuit chose this exact week to bust open and get holes in it.
It's only 2 days of the year I wish I had hair because it was just too cold last night.
Yeah, I wonder what the divers out there are experiencing this morning.
I reckon.
Nice and cosy in the studio, though.
Beautiful.
So before we dive in with today's guest, we'd like to acknowledge NAIDOC Week, which is starting this weekend. It's a time to celebrate and recognise the history, culture and achievements of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. We'd like to acknowledge the Irukandji and Idinchi people, the traditional custodians of the land where we broadcast, and pay our respects to 70 different traditional owner groups along the length of the Great Barrier Reef coast and to elders past and present. Now, let's meet today's special guest, Mike Scotland. He's a marine biologist, dive instructor and underwater photographer with a career spanning 50 years and thousands of dives. He's the editor of Divelog magazine and the author of 2 books, Marine Biology in the Wild and Swimming with Sharks, The Marine Biology of Sharks in the Wild. Both are packed with stunning photos and insights drawn from Mike's first-hand encounters with incredible marine life. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Tanya and Brett.
Hey, Mike. How are you, mate? Thank you for joining us this morning.
Great to have you on the show. We were just talking about how freezing it is up here in Cairns. Got down to 13 degrees overnight, but you live in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like down there, Mike, especially for diving?
It's a beautiful sunny day with blue skies, 10 degrees.
10 degrees. And you said you're going diving this weekend, so nothing stops you.
Yeah, stormy weather, but we're going to try for Sunday for diving.
Yeah, you said that some friends of yours were swimming with humpbacks recently, so it sounds like there's a lot to see down in Sydney if people aren't scared of the cold. 2
people I know have videoed humpbacks. They've been diving and humpbacks have actually swum past.
Wow.
And got beautiful, beautiful videos because we had some really clean water last week there. So there are some brilliant things that happen in Sydney water.
Well, that's very exciting for us because that means those big, gorgeous mammals are on their way up to visit us soon. So that's great.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be next.
Yep, absolutely.
So you live in Sydney, Mike, but you've done a lot of diving in many different places. Can you tell us a bit about where you've dived and what your favourite diving destinations are?
I've done 51 diving expeditions to the Great Barrier Reef, all the way from Lord Howe and Heron Island area up to Rain Island, and I've done about 38 trips around the South Pacific to places like Fiji and New Guinea and Truk Lagoon and so on.
Wow. But from what I can tell from talking to you, you still call Australia your favourite diving spot, don't you?
Sydney has got some brilliant diving and some fantastic marine life, and it's one of those cases that the closer you look, the more you see, and there's some really beautiful things to see in our temperate waters.
You know, I've heard you say that you think the Great Barrier Reef should be the number one, or is the number one diving destination in the world.
Definitely. I've been travelling a lot around the Pacific, and the level of protection from the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority in the green zones is going to make it restore its position as one of the world's best diving locations, because most other places do not have the same level of protection.
Which is something I guess learnt last week.
Yeah.
Isn't it, about the green zones?
Oh, yes. If any listeners didn't hear last week's show, go and check it out. We had a great chat with Imogen Zaytoven about how the green zones protect the Great Barrier Reef, and it is the largest network of green zones or no fishing zones in the world, which is something that many other countries don't have, and sort of suffering that loss of biodiversity as a result. So something we can brag a little bit about, at least in Australia.
33.3%.
Yeah, I forgot to include that last 0.3% a few times, but yes. Now, Our listeners are in for a treat because Mike has taught Paddy marine biology specialty courses throughout his career to help divers have a bit more understanding of those animals that they're going to see when they're out there diving. So we're very lucky to have Mike here to share some of that knowledge with us today. Mike, why do you think it's valuable for divers and snorkelers to learn a bit of marine biology?
When you're teaching diving and you find, say, a crab molt and you pick it up and you show divers and you say, look, here's its abdomen, this is a female, look at this part of the anatomy, this is how it breeds. People are fascinated. People love to learn and they love to have it explained, and they really get a lot more value out of their diving experience.
Before we go any further, let's take a little imagination journey back in time.
Oh, yes.
Imagine diving in an ancient ocean during the Cambrian period, around 570 million years ago. Life hasn't yet made it onto land. In the water column above, translucent life forms drift through the currents. Then, out of the blue, you spot something familiar. It's small, flat, and squishy, with colourful frills that ripple like a flamenco dancer's skirt as it swims. Totally hypnotic. It's a flatworm. But what you might not realise is just how much we have in common with this ancient animal, and how pivotal it was in the story of our own evolution. So Mike, what can you tell us about flatworms?
I'll go back to 700 million years ago when the North Pole ice and the South Pole ice met at the equator, and when it melted, the ocean life proliferated, went, explosion of life in that period, and the animals that had a left and right side were able to move, and this included the flatworm, probably the one we see today that is the first two-sided animal, was the flatworm. Now, two-sided means they've got a left and the right side with opposing muscles, and they can actually move.
So everything before that was not even symmetrical. They were just random blob shapes.
They were round, they were blobby, and they were drifting around. So when the flatworm developed the ability to move, it could then go and hunt. So to do that, it had simple eyes, and it was able to smell prey, and it had all these nerves, and they were all concentrated in one end, which we now call the head.
Groundbreaking.
So the first anatomical head, if you like.
First time an animal had a front and a back and a left and a right, instead of just being a sort of amorphous blob. How cool is that?
Because jellyfish don't have a brain, anyway. So the next thing which they did is they developed the very first kidney, and they became the very first hunters, so they could actually pursue prey and kill them. So
terrifying.
It opened up a whole new lifestyle. And then...
so they're the first carnivores, or the first predators?
First hunters, and carnivores are predators, yep. And next thing they did is they developed internal reproduction. Now, we know this as sex, and they had both male and female in one body.
Hermaphrodites. And
they had their sex organs actually inside their mouth area. So they cross-fertilise.
That was an early model before they figured out that wasn't the best place to have them.
Yeah, probably not ideal spot to have it.
That was the very first breakthrough.
Yeah.
So they invented sex. They also, a lot of them have got photosynthetic algae. But the biggest thing that they did develop is a three-layered body. This is a bit of a really advanced biology here, but I'll explain it really simply. A jelly blubber has got a skin on the outside, a digestive layer on the inside, and jelly in the middle. The flatworms have got skin on the outside, a digestive layer on the inside, and in the middle there's organs, like
the kidney
organs, kidneys, digestive organs. So if you look at our body, we've got skin on the outside, digestive layer on the inside, and we've got hearts and lungs and livers and kidneys, all those things that help us stay alive.
We're practically identical to a flatworm, really.
Well, we got the three-dimensional body plan was the biggest breakthrough in biology.
Wow.
In the last, or one of the biggest in the last 500 million years.
Wow.
And the flatworm was the first one to incorporate that internal structure.
And they one of my favourite things to film back in the day.
Yeah.
With the Spanish dancers, we used to call them as well, right? And they just glide through the water. Beautiful colours, and they're mesmerising for hours.
Yeah, they're so beautiful.
Oh, incredible.
But I never realised how important they were. They invented all these new evolutionary breakthroughs, without which we wouldn't be here today. So, amazing.
Well, exactly.
All life started in the ocean, didn't it?
Yep.
Exactly. And they also invented different kinds of muscles so they can swim in the open ocean. So, you know, as Brett said, the swimming motion of flatworms is very beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Was there any last things you wanted to say about flatworms before we go to the ad break, Mike?
Only that they're squishy. They're amazing.
Isn't science fun? Isn't it?
Well, please restrain yourself, listeners, because we don't want to be harming them. But you can tell by looking at them that they are squishy.
Observe and don't disturb people.
Our guest today is Mike Scotland, marine biologist, underwater photographer, and editor of Divelog magazine. And we started off by talking about how some of the first sea creatures evolved in the Cambrian explosion 700 million years ago, and how that contributed to who we are today. So, Mike, what's another sea creature that has been around for millions of years? Thinking about sea urchins.
Sea urchins are so weird, and when you learn about them, they are just mind-blowing. What they are is a fusion of mechanical and biological components. So they're part machine, part animal.
The world's first android.
Yeah.
They are. They've got ball and socket joints, which is like our arm in our shoulder that can spin in 3D. They've got a filter that filters water as it goes inside, and inside they've got hydraulic pipes, which we use in car brakes and bulldozers that operate their body. And they've even got scissors, and they're quite amazing in the way that they're built. And then, of course, they've got the biological living bits as well.
They kind of remind me of like a tank, because they've got like this spiny, hard outer shell that's kind of impenetrable. Well, except for those fish that are specially designed to eat them, I suppose. Like just a little tank rumbling across the seafloor in slow motion.
Yeah. I like the decorator urchins that pick things up and wear them as hats.
They're the best.
They are. And if you look carefully at them, they've got up to 2,000 spines, and each spine is a sculpture in cement where it's got a ball and socket joint, and the spine and little muscles, and it can rotate around. So there can be 2,000 of these, and tens of thousands of nerves, and millions of little muscles, and they use hydraulic pipes to move around on the seafloor and also to grab prey. And they have special things on their outside that, like a little pair of scissors, they're called pedicellary, and they can pick up dust and sand and keep their bodies perfectly clean.
Now I'm imagining one of those robot vacuum cleaners. They just sort of like poodle along with the little feelers out the front and sweep everything into their mouth.
Well, that's their echinoderm cousin, the sea star, isn't it? They're the Roomba.
What's the Roomba? Is that a
robotic vacuum cleaner?
Yeah, okay.
That's it, yeah. Yeah, so the sea urchins are fascinating creatures, as I said, because they've got so many mechanical components. You know, I just sort of think, well, how can Mother Nature create such a spectacular, inventive thing and show such imagination?
So cool.
There must have been spacemen come here and built some toys for our kids.
Oh, look, I spend hours at the touch tank at work, and people turn up just to look at a sea star, and half an hour later they're still talking to me about them.
Yeah, we could do a whole show just about echinoderms.
It's crazy.
But, well, I have a question about, you said that they can swivel their potentially thousands of spines in all different directions. Why do they need to do that? Do they swivel them in the direction of oncoming predators, I suppose?
Currents, maybe?
When they live in crevices and rock, like the ones in Sydney actually dig a hole in the rock. They're called rock boring urchins. And when they're inside that little hole and the spines are sticking out, they're completely protected. So when you go night diving on the Barrier Reef, it's like going back in time 400 million years, because The main life you see are feather stars and sea urchins and, in some places, giant gorgonian basket stars, and they dominate the night diving.
Night shift.
Wow. So you really can, everyone out there, you need to take up diving so you can travel back in time and see literal dinosaurs. So many things in the ocean have been around a lot longer, millions of years longer than life on Earth has.
Yep.
It's incredible. And when I thought about the urchin hiding in a little hidey hole, sticking its spines out, I don't know, I just thought about like soldiers hiding in the trenches with all their spears sticking out the top. So it's all, nature is the inspiration for everything else, really.
And some of the urchins have got a big eye on the top, and when you see them, the eye is like it's looking at you. But it's not an eye. What you've got to understand is on the bottom, they've got a 20-component mechanical mouth, and the digestive system goes up in a circle up through the top, and they pass out all the waste through the top.
Oh, it's a different kind of eye then.
It's called an anal balloon.
Yes.
And that Mambo guy, who's got all the drawings of the poo shooters, that's a perfect description of the anal balloon of a sea urchin, and it has a very important function, and that is to pump the waste so it doesn't get fouled in amongst all the spines and keeps the animal clean. The thing about all marine life is it's always clean, it's always almost perfect. You don't see things that are imperfect for long because they get cleaned up by predators or so on.
Well, we see that every day with the sea stars. They have the little bum on top, mouth underneath, and when people go to touch the top of the sea star, they say, don't touch the middle, that's the butt.
And also the spines point towards you, and you know, a lot of the tropical ones are quite poisonous. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever been stung by a sea urchin, Mike?
I am not going to respond to that question again, so I might incriminate myself. Yeah, I have, of course, You accidentally do touch them, you know, especially
by accident.
For a long time,
It's not something you forget, is it? I got done at Osprey a long time ago.
Did it hurt?
Yeah. It's not pretty.
It's good when you go diving in shallow water and there's thousands of those very long-spined urchins to help you control your buoyancy. You know, if you make a mistake.
It's perfect.
That sounds like a really good way to make people better at controlling their buoyancy very fast.
Teach advanced divers on their peak performance buoyancy, isn't it? If you mess up, you're going to hurt yourself.
That's exactly right.
Let's go and talk about another animal now, Mike. What would you like to share with us next?
Well, in Sydney, we have the weedy sea dragons. Now, Australia has iconic animals, including the koala and the kangaroo, but under the water, for us especially, our iconic Australian animal is the weedy sea dragon. And, of course, the leafy sea dragon from South Australia. And they are only found here. In fact, Australia is the world hotspot of this family, which is the pipefish and seahorse and sea dragon family.
Wow.
We've got 55% of the world's species, so we're a real biodiversity hotspot for seahorses and sea dragons.
Wow. Yeah, we should have it on our national emblem, shouldn't we?
Yeah, on a 20-cent coin.
It's a big round metal thing, kids, if you're not sure what that is.
20-cent coin has a platypus, I think.
Yeah. So weedy sea dragons, we can dive in Sydney, we can just drive down the road, jump in the water and see weedies. It's just like, it's one of the few places in the world where the marine life is wonderful, right bang smack in the middle of 5 million people.
That's amazing. It would be worth getting cold for, I think. Brett's shaking his head. He's like, cold water diving, not for me, thanks.
I disagree, because many trips I've done to the Barrier Reef, the staff up there say, I'd love to see a weedy sea dragon.
Yep.
Oh, there's no doubt that I'd like to see one, but I'd need one really good dry suit. I've been spoilt. Yes, I'll admit it. I'm spoilt.
Good. You lucky devil.
Okay, so weedy sea dragons, for any listeners that aren't aware, is like a seahorse, but covered in what looks like bits of seaweed, so they can blend in perfectly. So is it hard to find them? Well, it sounds like you said you can just jump in and see them everywhere, Mike.
They're very brightly coloured, but when you get more than, say, 2 metres away, they blend in incredibly well into the kelp. So they are very cryptic. A few things about the weedy sea dragons, they get to about 30 to 35 centimetres, and like seahorses, they have a courtship, which is usually in about June. And
it's courtship season. How romantic.
They pair up. We think they pair up for the season. There's very little's known. It's very easy for divers, as you know, to ask questions and to find out that, no one really knows the answer to that one.
Mm.
So we think they breed up one-on-one for the season, but we're not sure about whether they breed for life, like some animals do.
Mm.
So they start breeding in about, say, August, September, they breed in July, and the first babies are born August, September. As the days are getting longer, there's more food production and a much better chance of surviving and warmer water as well.
Are they like seahorses where the male actually broods the young in his pouch?
Yeah, the male does the breeding. He's got a soft tissue under his tail, and the female positions her egg one at a time on his cloaca and picks up some sperm, and then she plants it into this soft tissue a centimetre or 3 behind, and somehow or other the eggs are absorbed. And so you see males with maybe 100 or 200 eggs, about 4 millimetres in a perfect pink ball, in a beautiful geometric array, that she must have placed there one at a time. He gives them some nourishment. There's some exchange of nutrients from the male's body to the eggs, and scientists have discovered that the male has a special hormone called prolactin, which is one of the pregnancy hormones in humans. So they've evolved to actually help the eggs to breed using a hormone that is also found in higher mammals such as ourselves.
Yeah, so many of the hormones and functions that we have as humans go all the way back to the earliest ancestors.
Yep.
And fish have an amazing amount of biological sameness to humans. It's quite amazing.
Definitely.
It's probably why we feel so much at home when we get underwater.
It's true. We are
have that connection.
Children of the sea.
There you go.
All life began in the sea, just like life all begins in the salty amniotic fluid of the womb.
Exactly. And the other thing about Wheaties is that they've got pretty much no defence apart from their camouflage. And a lot of nasty fish nip at them, like wrasse and tobies and so on. They pick at their little appendages and so on. Mm. But we go down and shine our torch a few inches in front of the Wheaties on the sand, and it lights up the little shrimp they feed on, and they trust you. They get in and they look at you in the eye. And when you're down there and you're looking at a Wheatie sea dragon, and it's eyeballing you deep into your eyes, you think, this is just a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then when you shine your torch in front, they feed and they trust you.
Yeah, they're like, thank you for showing me that shrimp.
Meanwhile, the shrimp's going, can you turn your torch off?
Turn your torch off, buddy.
Excuse me.
But you can have these really intimate encounters.
Yeah.
And I sort of usually try and communicate with them using ESP and saying, well, we're sort of here to help to look after you, and we're custodians of the marine life.
We come in peace.
And you're safe, you're safe with us.
Oh, I'm glad it's not just me and Brett that talk to the marine life.
Yeah, there's more. Yeah.
Mind-to-mind communication. That's what
right.
Animals use. They're very attuned to reading other people or animals' thoughts, I guess, even from looking at you, because they don't use as much vocal communication. So I wonder what the Wheatie sea dragon is thinking when it's staring at you, Mike.
It's all to do with trust, and I'm sure that fish recognise individual divers.
Yeah, definitely do.
Yes, they definitely. They're probably far more intelligent than people might
give them credit for. Yep.
Give them credit for.
Mm.
So on that note, when I developed my marine biology course for scuba divers, I also developed a fish identification course, and one of the exercises I had was to get divers to identify 10 behaviours of fish. And it's not hard if you sit down in one spot still and you watch fish, you can see behaviours that you can recognise, like cooperation, pair bonding, trust or fear, or territorial aggression, or one fish protecting the school.
Yep.
That's interesting as well, how humans haven't really evolved any differently than those early fish species. I mean, we still behave in the same way. So we'll be territorial, or we can be cooperative, or we can be working together, or we can be aggressive. And I guess all animals are really just operating on the same basic drives.
Yeah, and you can identify their behaviour as long as you take a moment to have a look, and you can see what they're up to.
Well, that's the best guided dives to go on. When I used to film people on guided dives back in the day, I used to sit them on the bottom at 15 minutes in front of a bombie for 30 minutes, and you could see them looking across at me going, I thought we were going to go somewhere. And then after a while, they just sit there and watch all these animals come out of the coral, and they're all behaving differently, and all these fish turn up, and they come back and go, that was the best I've ever done in my life. And I didn't go anywhere. So that's the point. Sit down, let them trust you. They will come out, and you will see more of their behaviour and how magnificent they are if you don't go anywhere. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's
exactly. Yeah,
that's a really good exercise, a really good tip for anyone out there. Next time you go for a dive, just sit still, blend in, and the fish will gradually accept that you're just part of the ecosystem, and they'll start actually going back to their natural behaviours instead of hiding. So give that a go next time you go diving.
Absolutely.
The reason why people go diving is because we crave adventure, and when you put a mask on and you jump in the water, there's so much discovery and so many great moments encountering things from Mother Nature. But the highest form of life is to encounter a beautiful fish like a parrotfish, and then to admire how beautiful they are, and then to watch carefully what, as Brett was saying, watch them, what they're doing and how they're living, and then to go on and learn a bit more about them. So that's what I'm about. I'm about teaching people a little bit more. So one of the families I've focused on are the wrasse family, and there are about 620 wrasse.
Yes, for anyone that hasn't heard that word before, W-R-A-S-S-E, wrasse.
Yes.
So when you jump into the water with your mask, your first adventure will probably be stunningly beautiful fish like little jewels. And they're likely to be wrasse or maybe angelfish, but they're probably going to be beautifully coloured wrasse that have got impossibly jewel-coloured bodies.
Yeah, a lot of tourists come back from snorkelling and say, I saw a rainbow fish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, that was probably a parrotfish or a wrasse. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, they're a bit weird because they swim with their pectoral fins, because most fish and sharks swim with their tail fin.
Mm-hmm.
They've got really bright colours, and they're very friendly and totally unafraid. And they'll happily swim up near you, and they're very confident of their power, speed, and their incredible vigilance.
Yeah.
So they interact with people very readily.
Yeah, they come right up to you and try to pick the parasites off you like they would with other fish.
Yeah, like a little cleaner ass.
Yep.
Yeah, and most of them actually change sex from female to male as they're growing up.
Mm-hmm.
There are one or two exceptions that can be born male, but scientists discovered only about 30 years ago, they discovered that the reason for this is that a lot of fish have got both ovary and testicular tissue at the same time, and their behaviour determines which one dominates.
Yes.
So when they're babies, the ovary tissue dominates, and they're immature females, and if all the other females, as they grow up, if all the other females are absent and they become the dominant fish, they will start changing their behaviour, which brings about a change in sex from female to male.
Yeah. And that one that's highlighted the most down on the reef is the humphead Maori wrasse, Napoleon wrasse, isn't it? Wally, the big guy.
Mm.
Yeah, and when you watch them, getting back to what Brett said, you stop still and you watch them, you'll see the dominant male, it looks like he's bullying the other fish.
Mm.
But that could not be further from the truth. What he's doing, he's protecting them from danger. So when there's danger about, he'll get the school of, say he's got his female and 4 or 5 immature female juveniles, he will constantly show vigilance and protect them. So his behaviour is protecting.
Right, so he's rounding them up like a sheepdog.
Yeah.
It's not, it looks nasty, especially if you look at, say, something like a fairy basslet. You think, oh, he looks a bit aggressive, but they're not. They're actually protective. And when you watch them, you understand that it's sort of a positive experience. And this behaviour keeps the female, hormones producing her femaleness, and she's the alpha female. So she's keen to maintain that because she bullies the other immature females and keeps them immature. So that she's the only one who's mature and producing eggs, and she gets sole breeding rights with the male. So she does the bullying of the subordinate females. And as I said, it's protective, it keeps the family safe, it protects them from predation, and it's an absolutely wonderful thing to understand, this survival technique.
Yeah, and they're sexually dimorphic as well, which means the males are like a peacock, more brightly coloured.
In the breeding season, especially down everywhere, but down here, the males become electric. They look like they've got a battery inside them and they're glowing. And the females tend to be a lot plainer because they need to be more cryptic so they can't get seen by predators. But the males glow and they're showing off saying, I'm ready to have babies.
Yeah.
And their colours become magnificent, bright, electric, really spectacular. So that's when the photographer goes mad.
Oh, you're telling me. It's like they're all just bringing their A game, you know. Look at me, I'm more handsome, I've got nicer colours, you're going to want to breed with me. It's a big competition, it's so funny to watch.
Well, we do it when we grow moustaches and stuff. Yeah, look, we've got a big moustache.
Or shave our hair off,
Exactly. So all the wrasse family swim like mad during the day.
Yeah.
And they go, zoom, zoom, zoom. Now, I reckon every fish in the ocean is far fitter than an Olympic athlete. They're constantly accelerating, braking, spinning around 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They are super fit.
Oh, they're buff.
They're tough, they're strong. And if they're not strong, they get eaten. So they have to be absolute peak performance all the time.
We were just talking about wrasse and parrotfish, which are a type of wrasse, and they're named parrotfish because they're brightly coloured. They swim with their pectoral fins as if they were flapping their wings, and they have a beak-like mouth which they use to scrape algae off the corals. Now, Mike, are there any parting thoughts on the parrotfish before we move on to the next animal that you want to talk about?
Definitely, because the parrotfish scrape, there's coral scrapers and coral biters. When they scrape a bare patch of coral, they eat the fleshy bits. So they're not really vegetarian, but that leaves a bare patch. So when a baby worm larvae lands on that bare patch, instead of being eaten by the coral polyps, it can develop a shell and grow. And that's how come Christmas tree worms get to survive on coral. They would never be able to survive if the parrotfish wasn't scraping a bare patch for them to land on. And the same applies to those beautiful blue coral oysters you see that with the red eyes. So the parrotfish are very important in cleaning up the algae from the reef and keeping the coral in pristine condition.
Yeah.
They scrape a little bit of the living coral away, which leaves a bare patch for something new to land and grow, but they also will eat the algae off dead corals. They're really so much like sheep because they graze down all the seaweed, which, keeps the lawn mowed, but also makes more space for new baby corals to land and grow.
Yep.
And when you described about how the dominant male will round up the grazing females, I really thought about sheep.
Yes.
So that's their job, is the sheep of the ocean, is mowing the lawn, and that's why they're so important and protected.
Yep. And the other one is the slime sleeping bag. Because they eat coral, coral is notoriously slimy, and as we learned 40 years ago, that the slime contains ultraviolet sun-protecting chemicals. I did actually meet the scientist who discovered that at the Ames up there, Canadian guy. And I think when they eat the coral, the slime is somehow stored inside probably on the top of its stomach area. But they don't have acid in their stomach because that would make bubbles of CO2. So at night they pump the mucus out and it covers their body and makes a mucus sleeping bag.
Yeah, I've seen it on a night dive. It looks so cool. Like they're sleeping inside this clear
and it's masking their heart rate and keeping them protected at night, right?
Yeah, when the moray eels and the sharks are hunting for a fish, they hunt by smell, of course. All they can smell is coral slime, and they can't smell the fish. So I call it, it's not invisibility, but not smellability.
Unsmellability.
Unsmellable. Because I've seen moray eels hunting butterfly fish at night, and they don't use their eyes at all. They hunt entirely by smell.
That's right.
And when they strike so hard, and they're just phenomenal to watch.
Well, don't they have a saying, if you stick your hand in the crack, you won't get it back, it's a moray?
Yeah, that's right. So I wrote my marine biology course to help people get more out of diving and to appreciate marine life, and just to learn one or two things more to help them to value add to their diving and get more pleasure, more fun, more learning.
Well, I just wanted to put this in before we finish. When I hear the words Divelog magazine, it takes me back to sitting on Ocean Quest out at Norman Reef for years and waiting for the new edition to turn up. we had a whole stack of the dive log magazines. They used to be quite big back then, didn't they? And when the new edition had come out, you'd sit there with your cup of coffee after a dive and read up on all the latest stuff. And
scuba diver life.
Oh, it just brings me back. Yeah.
Well, it's only online now because, as you know, with the market, the social media has soaked up all the money. And anyway, it's only online. If you just Google Divelog Australasia or divelog.net.au, people tell me that's better than ever because it's now all about marine biology and some dive travel, whereas before it was more about, all different sort of stuff. But I've run a marine biology course in the magazine. I've run a very large fish biology course with cameos on every main type of fish, angelfish and butterfly fish and morays. And they're all there to read for absolutely free if you sign up and go in the archives. There's a whole world of really fantastic reading with thousands of hours of research by the editor, which is me.
Yeah, and most of it's all your own photographs as well. The photos in there are incredible.
Thank you. It's one of the good things about being an editor is that you can put in whatever you want. But at the moment with Divelog, in the next issue in August, I'm starting a 2-year completely free course on underwater photography, which I'll be giving away 100 tips and helping people how to become better photographers underwater and to understand marine life and how it's going to help them.
Fantastic.
So you're sort of putting one chapter of that in per issue of the magazine?
Yeah. And the last one I did was I did 2 years of marine biology of sharks with cameos on silver tips and wobbegongs and, all sorts of cameos on shark reproduction in great detail. So the idea of the book is if you read it and you read it carefully, you'll become an instant expert. Just add water.
You have published 2 books. Tell us about your books.
The first book is my lectures on marine biology. I regard it as a world-class, very unique book because it's got high-quality lectures with 299 postcard standard photographs. It's easily a standalone coffee book. Many of the photographs are competition standard photos, and the text has got tens of thousands of hours of research in it, and it's very comprehensive and very informative. If you read it, if you go for a dive and you see an octopus, and you read the section on octopus, then you get to learn a huge amount about their biology. I've covered mantis, shrimps, and
my favourite.
Pretty much everything you're going to see.
Wow.
In great detail.
Well, what I love about it is the fact that you're not just a marine biologist by degree or book study. You've been out there doing thousands of dives and photographed these animals and observed them yourself. And I like your writing it because it's humorous and written in a way that's easy for anyone to understand. So it's not too onerous for the non-scientist to read and have a little bit of laugh about some of the things you've seen the animals doing and the humorous way that you describe their behaviour, and your obvious love for marine life really shines through. So it's a pleasure to read your articles about marine life in Divelog, and I strongly encourage all the listeners to check out Divelog magazine online. And you can also check out Mike's 2 books, Marine Biology in the Wild is the first one, and the other one is Swimming with Sharks, the marine biology of sharks in the wild. So if you've got any divers in your life whose birthday's coming up, a coffee table book is a really good idea and a good way to support someone like Mike Scotland, who's put so much effort in to the Divelog magazine over the years. We've only got about 20 seconds left, but Mike Scotland, marine biologist, underwater photographer and editor of Divelog magazine, thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Mike. It's really nice to meet you, mate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.